Right, in this video, let's see if we can do the layout for the login as well as the register activities. So we'll start with the login activity. And for the login activity, we'll set right at the start, I'm going to set the background property to my color light, primary light that we defined in the colors XML. So now the background is this color, and to just quickly get the lock picture that we're going to use in this application, you can just go to the website again and just download that lock picture there. So you're going to copy that picture that you've downloaded, and then we're going to use it inside of our drawable folder. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste that lock there, and I'm going to keep it in the normal drawable folder, and you'll see that we've got the lock picture there. Now I'm going to drag in that lock picture. But note now that remember that we've got the progress bar, we've got the text view, and then inside this linear layout is where we want to define our layout. So I'm going to drag in the image view into that linear layout. And it's going to ask me to choose that specific picture. I will choose the lock, and then I can click on OK. Right, so now it's basically the whole screen, and we're going to set the width to 180, and you can enter there. I'll just try that again. 180, and for the height also 180. Now to get it in the middle of the screen, we're going to use the layout gravity, and we're going to say center horizontal, and that's now in the middle of the screen. And to just move it down a bit, I'm going to use the top margin, let's say as 40, to just move it down a bit. Now for the next part, we need to add, remember this is the login screen now. So we want to ask the user what's your email and what's your password. So I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to use a email one, and I'm going to drag it just underneath the lock, and you can see it's still inside this linear layout if you look at your component tree. And then I'm going to also drag in a password edit text just underneath it. Right, so there's the two. Let me just zoom in a bit so you can see there's the two. I'm going to click on both, and I'm going to set some margin on the left, let's say 20, on the right, let's say 20 again, and at the top, let's make it 20 also. Maybe for this one, let's make the top one 10. Okay, so there's the two edit texts. For this, let's set the hint quickly. So for the hint, we'll say something like, please enter your email address. And for that one, we'll say, please enter your password. And then we've got those two edit texts. Now if we click on both of them, we can go to the gravity property and also set center horizontal, which will center it horizontally. Now what we can do with the buttons, it's up to you how you want to do the buttons, but I'm going to drag in another layout there, a linear layout that will be horizontal, and it will still be in my login form, but it will be after these edit texts. So there's a new linear layout, and it's easier to drag it into your component tree. And you can see currently it spans the whole screen. So you're going to set the height property there to wrap the content. Now I'm going to go into the buttons, drag in one and two buttons there. So now you see the two buttons next to each other. I'm going to click on both of those buttons, and I'm going to set margins on the left 20. No, let's not click on both of them. Click on the first button. Let's set the margin on the left to be 20. And for that button, the margin on the right to be 20. And then maybe the margins in the middle, which means for this button, it's on the right-hand side. I'm going to have a margin of 10. Let's make it 5. And for this one, also on the left, a margin of 5. Right, so there's the buttons. They're nicely aligned there. Let's click on this linear layout that contains both buttons, and we're going to set the margin at the top to be 20 as well, just to move it down a bit. Okay, so there's the two buttons, and then after the two buttons, we can also add a text view right at the bottom. I'm not sure if that one's going to work. Let's do it there. So the text view right at the bottom there, make sure it's not inside of this linear layout, but inside of the main linear layout. Okay, so it's going to be there. And for this text view, we'll have it also go to the gravity property and center it horizontally. And then we can move it a bit from the top. So let's say the top, make it 10 there. And the text will be forgot password with a question mark, reset here. right? Something like that. So you'll have a nice login screen with where the user can then click on reset here if he wants to reset the password. Now for this one, if we want to use this one as a button as well, the text view, we need to go and change the clickable property to on there. So make sure the clickable property is on, otherwise it will not work as a button. Now for these two buttons, we can design our own button. So I'm going to go into the drawable folder and I'm going to say new drawable resource file. And I'm going to call it buttons and then say OK. Now in this file, you can see it's a selector. So we're going to change the selector there and we're going to set it as a shape. Now what I want the shape to be, so inside of the settings part there, I'm going to have this shape as a rectangle because normally buttons are rectangles. And I'm going to add some corners to it. So I'm going to say the corners should have a radius of, and let's work with 20 dp. And that's basically all I want there. And we can add a solid color there. Solid color there. And we can use the color property. And let's use the color primary color. And then just close it off. So let's say this is our background for our buttons. We'll have a corners, it will have a round type of button, and it will have a solid color primary. Now if we go back to the login, let's change that background on the buttons quickly. So I'm going to go to text, or you can just leave it at the button and go to the background property. So there's the background, and I'm going to start typing button or buttons, and there you can see add drawable buttons, and the same for that one. Buttons, add drawable buttons. And now our button is a bit, it looks a bit better. Okay, so now the text, click on both buttons. Let's set the text style as bold, and we can set the text color as a hash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Fs. And now we have white text on the darker buttons. Now in order to get rid of this bottom, you can see that the bottom of the button is basically cut off there. So let's just add some margin at the bottom of, let's say, 10, and for that one also a bottom margin of 10, and then that looks good. Okay, so now we've got the buttons, and maybe for that whole linear layout that contains the two buttons, let's just see if we don't have a bottom margin, so that is fine. For this one, a margin at the top, so let's make this one 2 to get it a bit closer, and that should be fine. Now let's click on the first button. For the text for this button, we'll name this one, let's call it login, and we'll name the text on this one register. Right, so basically now we have this layout all figured out where the user needs to enter his email address and password and then log in, or if he doesn't have an email address and a password, he will click on register, and if he forgot his password, he can click there. So let's make that one also, let's say, bold. It's a bit easier to see, and we can even make it blue if we wanted to. So let's make that color, let's set the color for this, and we make it a hash 0000, and we'll take a B2 there. So it will seem like maybe a link. Well, it depends on what you want to do. You can make that any color. Let's make the style, remove the style bold. Okay, something like that. Okay, so you can also make it, let's maybe make it the orange there. So let's use the color primary, or the color primary dark maybe. Okay, something like that. So forgot password, reset there, and then you can reset the password for the user. Okay, so this is the layout for your login activity. So let's just give it IDs. So that one will be, I'm going to call it ET mail. For this one, I'm going to call it ET password. And for that button, I'm going to call it BTN login. And for this button, I'm going to call it BTN register. Then for this one, which will act as a button, I'm going to call it TV reset. So that one will be to reset the password. Okay, so that's basically then the layout for my login screen. So let's do the layout quickly for the register activity. We're going to go into the text part and set the background there also as the primary light, so that we have that light background. Let's just zoom in a bit. And what we want to do here is to basically ask the user, you can ask him different questions. So I'm going to start off by asking his name. So I'm going to drag it in there, and we can ask, remove the text totally, go to the hint property, and we can ask him, please enter your name to register. Let's just try that again. Please enter your name. Escape key will take away the autocomplete. Okay, so let's drag in then after that, we will ask him, what's your email address? So we'll drag in an email address after that, and then we will ask him, what is your password? And we will even confirm, please confirm your password. Right, so we'll have this one, which is just a normal email one, and the hint will be, please enter your email address. For that one, it will say, please enter your password. And this one is, please re-enter your password. It's something like this. Now we can select all of these edit texts, and then we're going to say set the gravity to center horizontal, and then everything is centered nicely. So for the top margin, we can set the top margin as 10 for all of these, and then let's make the left 20 and the right also 20. Okay, so now it looks like this, and maybe for the top part we can set the top margin for the most top one. We can set it to 30 to move everything a bit down. Right, so there is basically all of the edit text that we're going to use. That one is plain text, email, password, and password. The last thing we're going to use on this layout will be the button. So we're going to drag in a button there. Let's set the left margin to 20, the right margin to 20, and the top margin to 30. Okay, so that's your button. Now let's set the background for that button as well. So there's the background property. We're going to set it to that buttons again. There we go. And we'll set the text color on it to be white. So where's the text color? There it is. Hash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Fs will give you the white. And then you can also make it bold. So there's the button. The text on the button should be register. And I think this is it. Enter your name, enter your email address, enter your password, re-enter your password, and then register. So let's go and give it names again. This one will be etname. That one for the email address will be etmail again. This one will be etpassword, and this one will be etreenter. Okay, and then your button will be btn register. Right, so that is basically it for this video. So we have the login screen that will look like this. If the user clicks on login, we'll try and log him in. If he clicks on register, it will take him to the register screen. He'll enter his details, click on register. We'll take him back to the login screen where he'll enter his details again and try to log in. If he forgot his password, we will just send a reset password when he clicks there. So this is basically it for this video, where we've got the two XMLs defined.